Hello, everybody. This is Kops Office Hours. Today is Friday, January 3rd, 2020. Happy New Year to everybody. We hopefully will have, well, we know we're going to have a great year because of all the exciting things that were already in the PR backlog. And we have an agenda for today. So a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be put on the internet to be mindful, therefore, of our code of conduct, which boils down to please be a good person. And be respectful of others. If there are things that you would like to be sure that we cover, please do put them on the agenda, either at the end or in the appropriate place if it makes more sense. I do think we'll get through the agenda anyway, so that's probably fine. Otherwise, let us go on to the first item on the agenda, which is Peter asking about new AMIs.
Yeah, so I linked an issue about network timeouts that are supposedly fixed with a newer kernel version. So people are asking if there can be newer AMIs. So I'm just bringing that up for discussion.
Yes, I think it's been a while. We were talking about doing them more regularly, and yes, it's certainly something I will both do a new set of AMIs, try to get in the habit of it, and see where we are with the automated or the image builder project, which is trying to bring this more into the fold, hopefully getting it to the point where it can be more, I guess, automated. But yes, thank you for that heads up. Next on the list, Hackman has a couple of items, or a related one first off about AMIs. Gabriel.
Yes. So first would be about, let me see. Why is a few questions? Why is Docker pre-installed on them?
Yes, so we create these AMIs, and they do include, in theory, all the software, all the third-party software that is needed in order to bring up in order to run. So if, for example, the Docker registries, I don't know what they're called, but the Docker apt sources was down, the image would still come up because it has Docker pre-installed. Typically, or the intent was that it was only an optimization, so that you can use any image. You could use a bare Debian image. You can use a completely different kernel or a completely different OS, and it would work. Just if you happen to be using an AMI which happened to have the correct version of Docker pre-installed, then it would just go faster and not have the need to download Docker. We haven't historically installed Kubernetes versions, so kubelet, primarily because we make an AMI for each minor version and not for each patch version of Kubernetes. That is something we could look at changing, but it isn't something we have changed to date. I know we've had some issues here in that we don't necessarily correctly handle removal of Docker versions, if I recall correctly. I'm not sure exactly whether that's true or not, but it sounds like we also have an issue here where we, when people are using containerd, we obviously don't want Docker pre-installed. I think what we need to make sure is, that we need to make sure that the installation is only an optimization. So in other words, Docker shouldn't be running, I guess, but should only be pre-installed.
Yeah. Right now it's running by default.
It's running. Okay. Yeah. So I think that would be, so yes, so that would be a good thing to fix. I'll look at fixing that. Hopefully it won't be too bad. But yes, the intent was that it was both optimization and one less external dependency in terms of availability.
I understand that, and I did some work on the code of the packages. The problem with this optimization is that, at least in the package install code, is that you don't get the new versions of any package. So basically, if you install some newer Docker or whatever, or when you bring up the VM, you just get what's in the VM pre-installed. So if there is a security update or something, you get it during the night. instead of getting it right away. During the night,
Yes.
the auto upgrade.
Yes, and we can turn off auto upgrade. The intent is that you get, yeah. So
Well,
yeah, carry on.
the intent would have been to get it right away instead of during the night.
Yes. So it's a little, we're a little weird here in that. So the auto upgrades are on, I think, by default. But if you want to be more, in theory, if you want to be all like declarative and fully specified, you in theory should turn off auto upgrades and manage the Docker installation yourself, like the version yourself. That doesn't really make a ton of sense for security updates where probably you actually want the update. So it's a weird like in between space where we do have auto upgrades turned on by default.
But I guess that's a totally different thing, because in a bigger company you would have internal servers where your updates are pulled, and you anyway get auto updates, but from those that are certified or whatever the IT department does.
Yes.
I don't think anyone wants to run, I don't know, Ansible or something to update all the packages every week.
Agreed. Yes, and I think if we get onto a better AMI, if we get the AMIs updated more frequently, maybe that helps. Like right now, we just don't have a great story, I'd say, around this whole thing, right? If you turn off auto upgrades, it's not, you're sort of stuck if an SSH vulnerability comes along, like we don't upgrade that package for you. And so yes, you'd be like needing to run Ansible or needing to run a daemon set to do the upgrades. I guess there's two things. One of which is to make sure that we don't install, or that when we pre-install Docker, we turn on the optimization, but we don't
We
like
disable the
start it.
service.
Yes, exactly. Or we make it so the service isn't started. Yes, exactly. And then the other one is the general bigger picture around how we want to handle package updates in a more repeatable way, right?
Well, or either repeatable or do the updates. I mean, if you choose the updates, I think it doesn't make sense to not trigger the, I don't know, yum install or something, because that picks automatically a new version if it exists.
Right. So as part of the first install, we should do, if auto upgrades are turned on, auto updates are turned on, we should presumably update right away. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
I think that makes sense. I don't know how other people feel about that.
That could impact our startup times, though.
It would definitely impact startup times.
Depends a lot on your image also, because, for example, I tend to look at what images are created, for regular distros, and usually every month there is a new one. So
yes.
If you use a newer image, you're pretty safe. I mean, it's not that slow.
Right. And it will be a good motivator to make AMIs more rapidly. So like update our own AMIs more rapidly because we'll notice the boot time right away.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll try to make something around it. I made something. Right now we install things using yum and apt, not dpkg and rpm anymore.
Okay.
So this at least pulls the dependencies. So if there is a dependency like it was for CentOS, we couldn't pull the right dependency because it was hard-coded in a dependency in extra packages. Right now we pull everything that's latest required by Docker.
Okay. That sounds great. I mean, I think we definitely need to get it so that, for example, if you're using containerd, that we aren't running Docker because you happen to be using this install, right? So that seems like a fairly fairly important one to do first, and then yes, any thoughts or helps on
disabling it would be pretty nice, because otherwise, in my tests, Docker was starting first, and it was something like a flip-flopping between Docker and then containerd.
Okay. Yes, that's a good point.
Okay.
Okay. You have also the next one, which is
And the next one.
well, yes, okay. Which is that the exec binaries from var, we should move that, or well, what are we going to do about the different OSs and their ability to? Do you want to explain? Sorry.
Pretty much all the OSs can run things from OPT.
And yes.
So this shouldn't be a problem. It's just seems that Red Hat and CentOS 8 don't want to run things from var cache, or I think var in general.
Yes. I would be in favor of like picking a, so we over time we have various locations where things are installed, which don't necessarily make a ton of sense to me personally, but have sort of been inherited, like from Kubeup, which is such a long time ago that we probably should make a better decision or make our own decision at this point. So rather than having locations that are OS dependent, which causes a ton of like, I don't know, or complexity that chains down the road, we could pick locations that are more generic, like etc Kubernetes for configuration files and opt or OPT for binaries. I don't know how people feel about that idea. We also can use symlinks to present unified fronts, as it were, so that I think, for example, the CNI, I can't remember whether CNI is expected
CNI is
to
in
be.
OPT CNI.
Okay, perfect. Then that makes sense. I'd be in favor of.
What I did, I moved most of the stuff to OPT kops bin.
That makes a ton of sense.
PRs.
Opt kops bin and opt Kubernetes bin makes a lot of sense to me. And opt CNI bin, I guess. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that. We'd obviously have to document in the release notes that we are as of 1.18.17, can't remember, we are going to put the binaries into a particular location or a different location.
Depends on when we want to get support for Red Hat 8.
Yes, we can. So I think we should move it we should move all OSs to opt kops bin, for example, at a particular version like 1.18 or 1.17, whatever we choose. And then we should move it, whatever version we choose to backport, as it were, RHEL, or cherry pick back RHEL 8 support to. We should like say like that the path for RHEL 8 should be the future path, the opt kops bin.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we're not sort of not constrained. But yes, if we sort of know where we're going to put it, we should, as we add support for new OSs, we should put them in the future location. But yeah, I think that's great. I will have a look at the PR 8212, which I'm guessing is moving it. And I think, yeah, opt to me feels like a great place for them.
It's a very simple PR. Just that the tests had to be updated and became extra large or something.
Perfect. That's not a problem. Thank you for doing that. And then I guess you have one more, which is the Docker health check. Our friend, the Docker health check. Why is it Debian only? Why is it not behind a flag? And it sounds like it had to be moved. Do you want to talk us through this?
Well, it was in up something, that automatic mechanism based on tags.
Yes.
And it was spawning for containerd also, and I was puzzled why is Debian only. At first I didn't notice it even.
Yes, so we have these the tags thing is this old mechanism that we're trying to get rid of, and I think this is one of the last things, and like gradually I do when I hit something that uses tags, move it to not use tags. So there's that one bit, which is like we have, I think, a handful of things left that use that tags mechanism, which we're trying to get rid of. But that's one thing, which is moving it from tags to like a more Go version. Originally, we had a I guess something more like Ansible or like, you know, a directory structure based approach. And it turned out that Go code was much better and easier to understand, particularly as things got more complicated. So that's why we moved away from tags. Now, why do we have this health check thing at all?
This part I understood from the commits.
Okay. Yes.
So,
I don't know whether we really still need it though. Like there's this, in theory, it shouldn't be necessary. In theory, like Docker shouldn't hang and containerd shouldn't hang. In practice, we might still need it. Like occasionally we see, but on the other hand, like other OSs don't have it and they seem to get away with it. So
my thought it was to just move it behind the flag and to be able to run it on any OS. You know, if you notice, you can enable.
that feels like the right thing to do. I would hope that we don't need it, but I can also have a look at what like what GKE has done, like whether GKE needs it, uses it still. That would be a good indication of how important it is today.
So from what I read in the, let's say, linked issues, under very high load, very, very high load, Docker does not respond anymore. It's restarted. And at some point, it doesn't even load the networking plugins and things like that. But should be something that happens for very few people.
I agree, and there was always the risk that the fixer script is worse. That, you know, like it's a heuristic, right? Like so it waits, I don't know, like 10 seconds or something, right? And there's always the risk that it's just a pause. Sorry.
Yes, but it's also bad because let's say I didn't know about it and I'm using kops for, I don't know, more than a year, I would say close to 2, and didn't know about it. So could hide the fact that your Docker is unstable. You don't know you see it, that it's still running when you try to debug, but you may not notice that it was restarted at some point by this script.
Yeah, that's very fair and a good point. Yeah, so I guess a flag or field would be a great way to expose that, and sort of the same argument that you persuaded me on with like the idea of exposing the fact that Docker uses containerd now. That to me feels like a good idea. I think that would be good. I'll also look at whether I'll try to find out whether it's still needed, if that would be helpful.
We can discuss in the PR, I guess. And I'll just change it to use a flag instead of starting for Debian.
That would be great. A field, right?
I was thinking like flag, sorry, option in the Docker config spec.
Perfect. Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, that was all.
Would it be better to move that to be a plugin in the node problem detector add-on and let people use that instead of having it outside of that?
That is potentially a very good idea. Do you know what I'm going to say, right? I think node problem detector runs in Docker. So I think it's a container. I can confirm that. Like this is a system.
I think it doesn't have to run, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Isn't it a binary?
I think it's I can have a look. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. My only like worry would be like if it is a Docker container that itself is checking it, you know, it's checking itself. But I think, yeah, a node problem detector would be a great way to do that as well. We can also express it as an add-on, even if it isn't a pod effectively. Yeah, I would rather let's follow that line of pursuit as one of the options that we're looking at. But if it's going to be a system to unit file, it feels like we could.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what happens to when Docker hangs, right? Do all the processes that it spawn hang, or
Yes, exactly. Like, and I mean, it's certainly like this has been around for a very long time, and it used to be much more of a problem. And it used to be like you would very rapidly know if you weren't running it. Now, I think a lot of OSs aren't running it and are fine. But yeah, that's. Let's take it onto the PR and discuss these options. I think that's probably the way to go. And I will try to find out from the Node team what the state of play is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Peter, Kubernetes deprecation.
Yeah, so we have, what do we have? The deprecation notice is in master. There are open cherry pick PRs linked in the notes to add the deprecation notice the warning to 116. We also have a PR to actually draft the support for the older versions that we agreed on in master. But while doing that, Hackman noticed that the current master can't actually launch Kubernetes versions less than 112, I believe. And so I'm wondering if it's worth discussing the supported versions. Do we want to fix the old support, or do we want to update our deprecation policy to no longer support the versions that aren't working?
I was able to launch 110, but not 1.9.
Is that with this patch, John, or without this patch?
Without, no, current master.
Okay.
And it was a fresh, empty, I mean, nothing configured cluster?
Yes, that was a fresh default README type cluster.
I don't know, for me it didn't work because of that manifest and those priority, the pod priority being missing, the feature flag.
I can have a look at the, let's assume, let's assume that it is broken, not saying you're wrong, John, but that like if it isn't broken, there's no discussion as far as I can tell. So let's assume it is broken. And then,
well, it's definitely broken for 1.9 and earlier.
Okay. So yeah, so there's some number where it is broken. And 1.9, but 1.9 was where we were was our deprecation threshold anyway, I believe?
1.9
no, it was 1.8.
Yeah.
4.
Okay, cool. So there is some version newer than our planned deprecation version where we have broken things. I feel like we probably should, okay. Well, I mean, deprecation is deprecation, so maybe we shouldn't just fix it. It doesn't look that bad a patch. I don't know. There were people that were using older versions, I think, right? Does anyone want to think we should continue to support these versions, I guess?
I guess I'll own up to still using 1.11.
1.11, okay. So 1.9 isn't too bad, but I mean, this is why we have the deprecation policy. I would be in favor of sticking with our current plan, which is like, we know we want to get something out there. We know we want to accelerate it. Like, we want to be nice to people and tell them that we are going to like narrow the window over time, probably down to whatever we said. I can't remember if we said 6 or 8, but like some number of that nature. I can have a look. I will also have a look at like whether things are broken on the older versions, and also like why we don't. Yeah, what the state of our E2E is. I'll have a look at that.
Yeah, so our E2E only tests the Kubernetes supported versions, the 3 or 4, whatever.
So we probably should fix that, right?
So Hackman and I talked about adding an E2E job for the oldest Kubernetes version that kops supports, which I think might be a reasonable idea.
Or just all of them, right? I mean, all the
Yeah.
majors.
We
Yeah.
could add the daily test, so that it doesn't consume resources.
Yeah, I think that if we're going to have a deprecation policy and we're going to formally say yes, we do support these versions, we should have the test that means we have some notion of whether or not we've broken them, so we don't have to sort of have the debate: is 1.9, is 1.10, is 1.11 broken?
Yeah, I think one. I don't know if it's an issue, but the URLs that the EDE jobs download Kubernetes versions for, we'd have to make sure that the older Kubernetes versions are still at those URLs.
Yes, that's true, because they might not. Yeah, we might have to move to the just the stable release versions. Yeah.
And then with this PR specifically for fixing 1.8, it is adding a feature gate to existing 1.8 clusters. And I know in the past, we've been hesitant to be modifying existing clusters in new kops versions. So I'm curious.
That is a tricky one, because we should, I guess I'll have a look and find out how it broke and how we didn't catch it, I guess. Because we shouldn't be.
We broke it in 1.15.
But did we add a manifest that used a feature?
We added Go code, which added a field to the kubelet manifests.
Ah.
You sure that's only that? I saw some errors related to etcd manager or something, etcd. I didn't copy.
We might have also broken something else, but at the very least, we broke that.
I'd hope for 1.11. Yeah, okay. I'll have a look at this and we can sort of try and track it down. My view would be, let's try to stick to the deprecation plan, and we know that it is important to close the window, but let's fix the things. But if it turns out that is a much harder proposition than what I am imagining it to be, then we can, I guess, revisit, right?
So if you don't mind having the feature gate there, which is something pretty simple, I don't think it's a big issue to be able to run on these older versions. In my opinion, if people want that version, they should agree that we need to also make it easy for ourselves. I mean, we cannot put everything in else. I mean, they should still get some features from kops 1.8.
Yeah, I agree. I guess we try not to introduce changes into previous versions. So something somewhere went awry there, and I will try to find out what that is, and just we don't do it again, right? But yeah, John, I see you smiling because you are proven correct that the 10 release policy is indeed problematic. I don't know if there's more we should talk about here other than just trying to figure out sort of a mini postmortem on how it happened and what we should do. But I would prefer to stick to the.
Okay, so if we do stick to our original plan, then the cherry picks should be good to merge. That for the deprecation warning.
Okay. Okay, so next up, Matt, question about the complex tests. And Matt, I saw you earlier. There you are.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. So I completely I broke these tests. I guess yesterday. Has something to do with the HCL, and I'm not really sure what's actually making them break, because it's saying that it's breaking on a token that's required to be there. It's the roll token. So I'm not really sure. Not really sure why they're broken. I think I may be thinking about how the tests are run In maybe a wrong way, but I don't know.
I don't know if anyone else has any insight. I don't have any insight, but I will have a look at this. I've not seen that error previously, so it's a good
Okay.
one. But I can, and your code that breaks it is pushed, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I pushed it up last night. But yeah, I don't have anything other than that. If somebody can just take a look at that error message.
I'll definitely have a look. It's certainly, I don't even know whether that's our error or a Terraform library error.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be something I did. So, I mean, keep your mind open, I guess.
Okay. But yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful when some of this happens to just push up the work in progress PR or the PR as it stands, and then hopefully it won't be too bad to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, and then am I also correct in those tests that are running there? If I just run make Travis CI, that it should run them locally?
Correct. Make CI or make Travis CI. The difference is supposed to be, and I think we figured out 2 weeks ago that it wasn't quite right. Make CI is supposed to run everything.
Okay.
Make Travis CI is the target which Travis itself runs. Gradually, we hope to get more stuff out of Travis into Proud jobs.
Oh, okay.
But the idea is that if you run make CI, you should run the complete set of tests. And Travis CI just happens to be the target that's run by Travis. So if you wanted to recreate what Travis runs, you could run make Travis CI. But if you want to check everything, you should probably run make CI.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Okay. Adam, a question about etcd manager.
Yes. Yes. Hi. I guess my first question is this the right venue to bring up etcd manager problems? Just because it is a different project, but it seems that kops is the primary user / contributor.
Yeah, it is the right venue, I'd say. I think there is a longer term plan to merge this into the etcd-ADM project, we've called it, in SIG cluster lifecycle. But yes, for etcd managers projects problems specifically, definitely this is a great venue.
Yeah, so we're currently debugging a problem with etcd manager or with our kops cluster that we've built, having problems getting all 3 etcd members up and running. So we have 2 out of the 3 working at the moment, and just hoping nothing goes wrong there. It's a development cluster, so it's not too bad. But more the problem that I was having was the documentation is kind of sparse. So trying to understand how etcd manager works in the first place was challenging. So I think I've got a general gist of what it does in the bootstrap process of it runs a separate gRPC server. It's then tries to gossip and find the other servers before actually starting etcd itself.
Correct.
And that was one of the things that wasn't immediately clear, is that it doesn't immediately start etcd. And the problem that we're facing is that on the node that keeps coming up as unhealthy is that it never actually starts etcd. So all the other members try and communicate with it and say it's unhealthy because etcd can't be communicated with on that port. And the reason is that if you actually look at that one, it's saying that it's, I'm not exactly sure why, but like something in the initialization process is in the wrong state, and it maybe thinks that it's already running etcd, but it's not. So I think just some debugging tips or how to sort of go about this sort of thing. I'm not sure if there's a bug in etcd manager itself of just not being able to get out of this state.
It probably is. I think it would be super helpful that what you said just now about the idea that, like, the beginner's mind, as it were, to capture that. If you could send a doc or something just to say, like, you know, the first thing it does is it tries to bring up the control layer and gossip and elect a leader, and then it starts etcd. That's like,
yeah,
just something that like I hadn't thought to write.
Yep.
So it'd be great to get, if you don't mind, sending any doc around that at all. the the way to check what's going on here is the machine which isn't coming up to see, or is not, which the leader can't contact. Basically to see why it can't. I'm not sure whether it's the same machine as this one, but when etcd runs, its logs are interspersed into the etcd manager logs, which is sort of annoying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that is a good way of telling that it's working in some way, because it does, it's easy to spot that, especially because the log formats are different.
Yes, that's
easy to spot that etcd is actually running. But yeah, it's the question of what do we do when it's not? And yeah.
Yeah, so the one which isn't running, so you probably have to get the logs, the etcd manager logs, which include etcd logs, for the machine which isn't running to see, and then that's, I'm assuming it's not this one, but it could be.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now, and I think that's not the one that we copied from, because that's the one that has, the etcd has an healthy members, but we already have a slot where we could add another member. And I think that was also where my mental model just completely broke down, because I am not sure what a slot where we could add another member is.
Yeah, that looks like the etcd manager that is master, or is the leader, so that can't be the one that's not functional, right?
It can be, because it's a separate layer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
This will get better when etcd supports non-voting members. It will become a little bit less confusing, hopefully, but the slot is around whether it's safe to add another member to the cluster. It is cryptic, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's also my question, is that if it's saying that we already have a slot where we could add one, why is it not adding
it? Yes, exactly. That makes sense. It could be that we think we've got all the members. Yeah, we already have a slot. I will look at that message. That's controller go line.
Has this ever come up clean with all three, or?
I think we've done some weird things to this cluster. So there might be like some old state left around or something, which is causing this, because I think we initially created it without a load balancer, and then we like tore some stuff down and then rebuilt it.
Sure.
So
you may try just issuing a restore on that.
Yeah, that is one of the things I tried.
etcd.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I tried. One of the error messages, not this one, but was saying do a restore from backup, and I tried that etcd manager restore command, but yeah, essentially the same thing. And also some documentation on how that restore actually works would be nice as well, because it did seem to be kind of magic.
I thought we documented that. We didn't.
I think there was documentation on how to run it, but not necessarily how it works.
Yeah, there's the way it works, by the way, is that we do backup like every n minutes. I think it's 10, and we basically pick one of the members and back up from there. We back up to S3 or GCS or whatever you're using. We also maintain a command queue for operations that are unsafe that could cause data loss, which includes restore, because there's the window of loss. That is itself stored in the same backup destination. So that's how the command can run from a different
so
location.
I think that's how I was thinking, is that it's going to S3 somehow and reading from there. So yeah, that confirms that. It's
perhaps a little convoluted, and we perhaps could just like do something easier. But anyway, that is how it works. But yes, I think in terms of moving forwards with this, if we can get it, if you either send me personally on Slack or like get update with the logs from 2C to try to understand what's going on with etcd.
Exactly.
Yeah, like whether it's not starting at all or whether it's starting and crashing out, or whether we have the wrong IP for it. Those are the three most likely scenarios, I guess.
Yeah, I did see at one point, I'm not sure if it's in this logs. Yeah, there is. So there's fallbacks map, and then it says etcd, and then it's got a list of like 3 IP addresses. And I'm not sure if that's something where etcd manager keeps like past IP addresses or something like that, or
For the gossip, it does. Oh, I see. Yes, that is probably, those are historical ones, yes, and probably don't need to keep those that long, I guess. But yes, it's.
but that is not going to cause problems in like the finding the peers, is it?
It shouldn't. It should gossip around. It should be like other locations to check, but I will.
Okay, that sounds
As long
fine.
as the current, there is an IP for 2C, which it expects, where it says somewhere the, like there, that IP address where it dialed and tried to fail the 253 address, like making sure that is actually the correct address.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay, thank you. And then, yeah, so if you update that or send me a Slack, that will, either way. Hopefully we can get that figured out for you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Peter, you have currently the final issue,
Yes.
or the final discussion topic.
Yeah, just a minor thing for you. Trying to get the image pushing job to work. I made a PR in the test info repo to fix that side, hopefully, and then this may do it. It's hard to know because I can't test anything myself. So I just need to know what the GCR repo would be that we push staging images to.
I don't know off the top of my head. I will find out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't want to try to have a guess. But yeah, thank you for this. That would be, if we can get that going, that would be great.
That's a good get tag right there.
One day it's going to collide. We have reached the end of our agenda. We have a release plan for the next 2 weeks. Good point. We should do, definitely, we should agree the release plan for the next 2 weeks. Thank you, whoever's writing this. Cyprian Hackman, thank you. New AMIs, and then I don't know how people feel about updating or 1.18.0 alpha. Feels a little, yeah, but let's cover.
I would like one because I want to make a change to the manifest, which requires the changes in the Docker file.
And it's pretty good technology preview for containerd or whatever else people want to see. For me, 1.18 works reasonably in tests. I mean, I don't see things not working. So we could start with alpha now, and once it is, we can keep up with the official Kubernetes. When they release beta, we can release a beta also in 2 weeks or something.
Is it in 2 weeks? That's scary.
No.
But okay, it sounds good to do that. I like that idea. John, I didn't understand your point about the manifest.
I changed DNS controller and kops controller to run as a non-root user, and I would like to change the manifest accordingly. So if someone just runs out of trunk, it would break unless I have new images for them to reference.
Okay. Yes, I think we can bump the, yes, okay. We can bump the version, but yes, whether or not we release the, we should just release it. That's the easy answer.
We could release alpha and not cut the branch. Keep it off of master.
I think that's the right thing to do. Yes. And then 1.7, let's work backwards. 1.15, sounds like we need 1.15.1. That seems uncontroversial, I would say. 1.16.0 beta 1 or stable, or the actual release, I guess. So I don't know if anyone has hit any problems with 1.16.
8200 is, I think, a release blocker. Otherwise, we're going to regress.
Must fix 8200. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I will take your word for it. Let's see if I can.
And there's also the one we discussed earlier about it not running on old versions.
Also old version fix, which was which is 824.8. I'm going to assume those are both also apply to 115.1, right? Is that fair?
8200 is regression 116, so it does not apply to 115.
Okay. And I don't know whether is the old versions a blocker for 115 if 115 already has it. Maybe. I'll have a look at this. Maybe should fix. Maybe also fix. Okay. But I think we're ready for 116.0 beta 1 otherwise, in terms of functionality. Okay. And on that note, then we could do, I'd say we should do an alpha 2 of 117 rather than doing another beta if we are, and that's it. My happy position would be if 116, when we do 116.0, then we do the beta for 117. And we get to a nicer, like 1 alpha, 1 beta, 1 stable position. Okay. But yeah, and then we can do an alpha 2 of 117, catch up on any outstanding things, and hopefully get some people maybe trying that out. Or more people trying that out. Does that sound good to everybody? Wow, 2 thumbs up, thank you. All right. I don't know if there's anything else. That feels like a good, I think the other thing to do is get lots of, like, get the PRs down. I think, John, we hopefully will get your tainting, taint before roll. I think I like the idea of soft tainting. I don't know if, we didn't discuss that. I don't know if anyone wants to mention that, or you want to mention that? John? No? Okay. But yeah, if we soft taint the nodes, I feel like it's a great thing to get in. It's a win all around, I think. So thank you for that.
Can I ask a question around same area? We still don't tag root volumes in AWS, right?
If you say so. It sounds.
Launch templates or something doesn't support this.
Okay.
I saw that, I think you wrote that you tried the new version. Sorry, I don't know how it's called right now. I don't remember.
Oh, the launch instance templates, maybe?
The alternative.
Right.
So that should be able to fix this. But I was wondering if maybe if there is something that we want to do to tag them, you know, like in Node App or somewhere else.
You mean even if we did not have them tagged by AWS?
Yes. So it's root volumes. They can be tagged once the node comes up.
Like we could use a controller, for example, to do that. Do you want to tell us why you would like them to be tagged?
My bosses nag me that they don't have tags. So
Okay.
I either have to create some scripts that go around and tag everything, or...
Okay, that's a fair reason. There are a couple, so we can, it's much easier now to do it. We have a controller now that runs all the time, so it's easier to do things there. If you wanted to do it externally from kops, you could also do that. And you could, you can watch the nodes, and like the nodes have the provider ID, and you can from there know when a node has joined. So it's not impossible to do elsewhere. I do know that there are other companies that have automated systems that try to enforce this rule as well. So and will delete things automatically, for example, if they aren't tagged. I don't know if anyone here works at such a place or has an existing workaround. I'd suggest, why don't we start an issue or something to just try to gather feedback on this.
It is confirmed as true. We run the same issue. I just told them to just look at the instances because they're all tagged properly. But you're right. I think there's a valid use case for getting this fixed. But I think Justin is right. Let's get an issue open. We can dump some ideas there and kind of pick up path forward.
And we do the same thing. We actually have a process that runs that doesn't handle the root volumes, but it handles any EBS volumes created by a PVC, and will copy labels from the PVC up to Amazon as tags. So we might be able to modify that to also watch the nodes and do the roles. I think that's in a state where we could probably pretty quickly open source it. So I can check and see about that.
That would be great. I guess the other question is there anyone that would not want their root volumes tagged?
There's it's just an interesting one to watch out for. So we have something that runs internally that takes tags from instances that things are attached to and copies them down. And we managed to overwrite some etcd volume tags, which for etcd manager was not a fun time.
That is not going to end well.
Thankfully, we caught it in testing.
That's great. etcd manager has backup, so it's not the end, but yes, it's
yeah,
not. Yes.
We managed to restore, but
yes.
It was a fun day's debugging.
Okay, so so you have something which copies from the sorry, can you repeat it? Copies from the instance to the attached root volume?
Yes, which is probably not I don't think is the best way to attack the problem. But it's a generic solution we run.
But it does solve this
from
challenge.
the instance also and modify a bit. But seems kind of hackish because it's not just Kubernetes and the script becomes a bit larger in time.
Yeah, we have the controller now, and it does observe nodes. So it should be, and it has, I think it has AWS permissions, or it has some AWS permissions already because it has to like cross-check instances. Although, yeah, no, I think it does. I think it has all that. I think all those things are true. They certainly will be true over time. So it wouldn't be too hard to put it right there. I don't know whether we want to have it flagged or controlled in some way, or whether we should just start doing it. I guess that's the issue of like that everyone probably has a workaround already is going to be the sort of Guy's point is well made.
How does the kops controller pod have its AWS credentials? Does it inherit from the node, from the master that it's on?
I believe it only, yeah, so it only runs on the master, and I believe it, yes, I believe it gets the...
So if we are using like kube.iam or KIAM, and we have enforcements that, prevent pods from inheriting the node's role, that would be problematic.
It would be problematic if you're enforcing it on kops controller, which might be quite
Wait, can you say that again?
So our kube.iam setup, we have namespace enforcements so that pods in a certain namespace can only assume certain roles. And then we have a default role for pods that don't have the role ARN annotation on them. And that we have assigned to a role with no permissions on it. And so it sounds like with our current setup, the kops controller would break because kube.iam would give it credentials for the role with no permissions rather than letting it pass through and inherit the node's credentials. So I think at least we should allow the kops controller to have annotations added to it. I'm not sure if that's supported already, but we should make that configurable.
Or explicitly manage its role. But yes.
Yeah.
I think that would be good. There's also, there's the AWS did a open source project, which is the AWS identity something.
For service accounts, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm working on adding support for that in kops too, but I'm not far along enough to bring it up here, and there's a few roadblocks that we're going to need to discuss. So I think it needs.
Do we have to publish the JWT?
It needs files in your state store that are public read access, which I think our S3 layer doesn't support easily.
The S3, well, okay. On GCS, we actually started doing that. So GCS has different, let's just say different approach to permissions. And so there is an ACL abstraction, which might be there. We should certainly talk about this properly,
yeah.
like with more time. But there is an ACL abstraction which might allow it. I don't know whether it's a good idea to have individual files in a bucket as sensitive as the kops state store, which are public, or whether we should create a second bucket for something like that.
Yep. I'll open an issue and write that stuff out so we can discuss it.
But yes, we should certainly.
It also doesn't work if you run your own OIDC provider that's private, like Dex or something like that. So that's an Amazon problem. We have an open ticket with them on that.
It doesn't?
Yeah, Kubernetes, kops and Kubernetes work fine with it, but they, on the IAM side, they need to connect to it. And if it's private, they don't have a networking way to connect to it.
Okay.
Anyway, not related.
All right. Yes, it's definitely a bigger topic, I guess, for a future time. And we are at time. I don't know whether anyone added any last items, but otherwise, this is a great start to 2020, I think. Thank you, everyone, for everything you are doing. And we will see everyone in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Justin, I left you a message on Slack. If you could take a look, please.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.